I'd like to flesh out the story of, I don't even think it's up for debate, the most infamous pirate of all time, a man by the name of Edward Thatch, also known as Blackbeard. So he kind of teams up with this guy, Stede Bonnet, I think is his name. He's referred to as the gentleman pirate. He teams up with him, and they wreak havoc on the Atlantic coast and the Caribbean. So walk me through Blackbeard's story, and you mentioned earlier in the conversation how he came to a very unfortunate demise with getting his head chopped off. So
Blackbeard was most likely, we don't know for sure, he's probably a privateer during the War of Spanish Succession, decided to go into piracy. He sort of appears in around 1714. He gathers together an increasingly large pirate armada, and at some time, Stede Bonnet, this wealthy sugar plantation owner from Barbados who decided to become a pirate, joins Blackbeard. Then he leaves Blackbeard, then he joins again. He's a different story. People can read the book. It's very interesting how it interacts. But Blackbeard, the biggest thing that Blackbeard did, he didn't get a lot of money from it, but he had 5 ships under his command. And he went to Charleston, South Carolina, and he basically blockaded the harbor for the better part of a week. And instead of demanding a huge ransom or attacking the town, which would probably be a pretty dicey proposition because they were fairly well defended, but he had a lot of prisoners because he got some merchant ships that were around the mouth of of Charleston Harbor. So instead of demanding a lot of money, it apparently some of his men were suffering syphilis or some other venereal disease. So what he really wanted was some medicine. So he asked for a medicine cabinet, which is probably worth about 400 pounds sterling. But that's essentially all he got. And then he went up the coast, and everybody was all upset about this. And he ultimately ended up off Ocracoke Island. He interacted with the local North Carolina governor. He attacked a couple of more ships. He was carousing. He, never gathered a huge amount of money. But then the Virginia governor discovered this, and he helped send a force to root out Blackbeard and his men. And they were Royal Navy. They were from the Royal Navy, and they ultimately did. They tracked him down near Ocracoke Island, and there was a battle between two Royal Navy sloops. They actually were just basic sloops that the naval men commandeered because their bigger ships couldn't maneuver in that shallow water. They went down there, they snuck up on Blackbeard, they caught him after a night of carousing. There was a violent battle, a lot of people were killed. One of them was Blackbeard. His head was chopped off and placed on the bowsprit of his own sloop and taken back to Williamsburg. And as legend goes, they took his headless body and they pitched it into Albemarle Sound, where apparently his headless body took a few laps around the ship before sinking from view. So powerful was his personality that he still was animated without a head. So it was a very dramatic story. He had a very dramatic end. There's no evidence that he gathered a lot of money. It was almost the image of him was more scary than the reality of him.
yeah, it's really his death that probably gives him this infamous place in history. But they actually found, you know, remnants of a wreckage off of the coast of Ocracoke Island, and a lot of people speculate that this is the Queen Anne's Revenge, that this is Blackbeard's ship that sunk during this battle. And something interesting is they found, a French syringe from the wreckage, and you could argue, you state in your book that it's possibly from the medicine chest that he requested from South Carolina, which is so interesting.
Right. Well, actually, the Queen Anne's Revenge was not in Ocracoke. He went into another. I can't remember the inlet. What is the inlet? It's a famous inlet, and the Queen Anne's Revenge crashed. This is before the pirates sort of dispersed and went down to the Ocracoke area. But yes, the North Carolina, there was a salvage operation. The archaeologists down there are reasonably confident that this is the remains of the Queen Anne's Revenge. They've recovered cannons and pieces of wood and other items that lead them to that belief.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. Just recovering lost treasure is one of the coolest ventures I think humans can do.